In this session, we will be focusing on creating a data visualization using a bar chart. See, whenever we are able to connect to some kind of a data source, whether it is Excel, Access, SPSS, SAS, or any kind of a data source, it is like I'm getting an invitation to explore the data much more. In many cases, when we are trying to explore, we may have well-defined questions. Our questions might be well-defined that I may want to extract from the data. And in some other cases, the questions are very general. I don't have a predefined set of questions, what I want to explore from the data. So that is where I will be looking at the data visualization capabilities of Tableau, which can really help us in rapidly exploring the data very fast. I can ask new questions. The moment I see one quick visualization, I should be able to ask some new questions. I should be able to execute them much quicker, and I can do a lot of new discovery in the data, in the patterns of the data. Now that is what is the data visualization all about. And there are so many kinds of visualizations in the form of charts that the Tableau repository is having. So one thing, plotting a chart is much easier. The goal is never to learn how to create the chart types, right? Because the tool will do that process for us. Here, in any visualization, for us the major aspect is how do I think through the process of discovery, of analysis, and of how can I create a story to my audience so that I can explain the business problem and give an indication of the solution to it. So the purpose of Tableau is not spending too much of time to create a chart. Everything is a drag and drop for us. But the purpose is make this process of discovery, analysis and storytelling much intuitive, much rapid, much transparent. So if we look at the creation of one of the charts that is available in Tableau, you can very well appreciate this aspect. So you create one simple bar chart with a simple drag and drop, but what you could see is you could play around with it, and the more you play around with it by dragging and dropping, you get more and more new insights into your business. And if Tableau is successful in doing that, probably you have really made an improvement to your overall business using Tableau. So let's see how it really plays an important role in the creation of charts. So I would like to touch base upon the bar chart. So what is the intention of the bar chart? I think you must be knowing it. It's a representation of the data in the form of bars. In some cases they could be horizontal bars. In some cases they could be vertical bars. The main intention is to make comparison. So we should know in what case what and how do I interpret it. So bar chart is actually helping me to compare the value across the different categories of data. So it eases my comparison process. And the length of the bar really tells me which category is having a higher value versus a lower value. But apart from length, there are quick differentiators. I can differentiate something by color. I can differentiate something by the size, which is the width of the bar, or I can do some kind of stackings to know one above the other. Stacking is nothing but not one beside the other, to know one above the other, so that I can look at part to whole kind of a ratio. And the more and more I understand the internal aspects of this chart, I would be able to communicate things much better to my audience. Now, when it comes to Tableau, creating any chart is very, very easy. We really don't need to get into the programming aspects or anything. So it's a simple drag and drop, right? Just like any feature, even creating a bar chart is simple drag and drop. Whatever the measure, so what are we dragging and dropping here? On one side, we are dropping one measure, the measure that I want to see. I can drop it in the row or in the column. Similarly, I can drag one dimension and drop it in the opposite. So if I have dragged the measure in the row, I drag the dimension in the column, and vice versa. So we can take our example, that copy chain example, and we can try the discovery process. Right? We have a big data. So I want to do a discovery process. Let's say focus on profit of the company. I would like to explore the profits of the company using this example, using bar chart. Right? I would like to see what is the level of profitability the company is having, probably across products, across markets. There are different ways of exploring the stuff. Right? So let's go ahead with our Tableau workout. So what I do is I create a new sheet. So I go down here, new worksheet. I go to this. So let me call this, I rename this sheet as bar chart. Right? So we'll do the workout here. So all I want to look at is profit. So let me drag the profit. This is the profit. I drag it onto the column. So suddenly you could see the total summation of the profit across, which is around 260K. The total profit is shown as a bar. One single bar, total profit across all the data. But I'm not interested. There's no meaning to it. So I want to look at product wise. So we have so many products. Just recollecting from your data, there are, let's go back to our data source. So there are so many products here. This is the one, the product. These are all the products. Or if I'm looking at the product type, there are 4 product types: coffee, tea, espresso, and herbal tea. These are the 4 product types that are there, and within that there are different kinds of products. So let's say we'll do a product type analysis. So I'll come to the bar chart. So I want to analyze the profit product type wise. So what I do, this product type, I simply drag it onto the rows. Sudden. Now there is a difference. Oh, coffee is looking more profitable, right? The higher profits are coming from coffee and the lowest of the profits are coming from tea. A straightforward work. So there are 4 bars, one for each product type. A straightforward representation. Now it is helping us to do the comparison between the product types. I can very well make out coffee is generating more profit, tea is generating the least profit. Now, if you look at here, in the marks. Here you see this automatic which is showing a bar. Automatic is showing a bar for us. So Tableau has used its own intelligence. I did not plot a bar chart here. Tableau has used its own intelligence to identify that bars are the best kind of visualization for the fields that you have selected. So you have, what is that you have selected? You have selected one measure and one dimension. And when you have selected something like this, Tableau has decided that the bar chart is more and more appropriate for this kind of a data. So product type. Now product type is a dimension for us. So it should define the headings for the row. So that is what it has put, the headings. Fine. Then we have given a measure which is continuous, which is profit. Profit is what you have given as a continuous measure. So the moment it's a continuous measure, it becomes an axis. So it has identified that this should be the axis. So based on that, it has used its own intelligence and finally given us that a bar chart is more appropriate for this kind of a data. Now, Tableau can very well create any of these marks. You could create for every intersection of the dimensional values, you could create a circle, a square, a bar, a shape, any of these kind of charts. And it plots each of them in a different way. Right? So, okay, you can change it from one form to the other if you want. Let's say from the bar, you have changed it to a line. You can plot it. Right? It's not that it can't. You can change it to a square. It has plotted a square chart. You can plot it to a circle. The same thing is plotted in the form of a circle. Or you could plot a pie. The same things, right, in a different format. Probably the representations are slightly different. But what the automatic choice that has come out with is the bar. Now, okay, it's a simple chart, right? No issues, I can go forward. Now, if I want to go much more deeper, right? The first, what is the analysis that I am bringing out? Yes, copy is more profitable, T is less profitable. But I may want to see across markets. Okay, this is overall. Let me dig deeper now. I want to look at market wise, what is the kind of profitability, right? So simply what I want to do, I want to drag the market, the different markets we have from the data. We have 4 different markets: central, east, west, south. So what I really want to do is, I'll also want to look at product wise, market wise kind of analysis. So I drag this market and I put it into the product. Now I could see, copy product wise each market, right? Copy in the 4 markets. What is the profitability? Tea or espresso in all the 4 markets, what is the profitability? Herbal tea, what is the profitability? Tea. Oh, quick thing that is coming out. Tea is not present at all in the south market. Right? There is no tea for market for tea in the south. Okay, coffee. Extraordinary profit in the east. Whereas much lesser profit in the west. Though overall coffee is profitable, right? The highest of the profits are generated from coffee in the east, whereas in the west, coffee is less profitable. Probably in the west, tea is generating a big profit, and herbal tea is generating a much bigger profit. Now, if I look at for each product, coffee is very profitable in the east, but least profitable in the west. Whereas espresso, it has nothing in the east, but in the central and in the west, it's doing a good business. Similarly, herbal tea in the central and in the west, it's doing a good business. Whereas in the south, its business is much less profitable. So you could bring out some kind of insights just from this data, right? So because we have added one more dimension, now you see, I will change the dimension slightly, bring the product type this side. Now it's giving me market wise, product wise analysis. Okay, in central, which is the most profitable product, almost all four are equally profitable. Slightly higher for herbal tea, but all four are more or less the same. Whereas in the east, coffee is the dominating leader. See how many insights I am getting, right? Espresso and herbal don't have a market in the east at all. Whereas in the south, the overall market itself, overall profits itself are much lesser because none of them is crossing this number, and probably whichever is the profitability, espresso is created slightly a better profitability there. Similarly, in the west, you see that espresso and herbal tea have dominated, whereas coffee is on the lowest side. Now, you can create as many such kind of insights as possible just by playing around with the stuff, right? So we are very clearly able to bring in a few more dimensions. Coffee has created a high profitability in the east, whereas it is much lesser in the west. Then a slightly more better way of doing the same. I don't want to put it, I want to look at even the overall as well, right? Overall profitability probably for each product. So what I really want to look at is the market instead of keeping it here. If I drag it from here onto the color, so which means market wise it will apply a different color. Now my graph is slightly different. Now it is still plotted with respect to product type, but a different color for each market. So color is a visual appeal for us. So there is a different color that is being plotted for each market. Now we have a stacked bar, right? We don't have a side by side bar, so it is optimizing the space better. It's having a stacked bar. And so this is telling me, okay, product wise, coffee is having the highest profitability. It is like our first graph that we have plotted, but profitability is split market wise, right? Instead of one single bar talking about total profitability for coffee, this is the one talking about product wise profitability. So a color legend has been added to the workspace, and profit is still the sum of all the individual products, individual markets, the profitability across each. Now, the stacked bar that we have created, it is clearly helping me to understand part to whole kind of a relationship. Anytime we create a stacked bar, the intention is to understand the part to whole. What portion of the total profit of each of the product comes from each of the regions. But of course, comparison is slightly difficult, but still it can be made. Greens, oh, only in 3 areas, only in 3 products green is visible. Here green is not visible, which means tea is not there in the south. Still the conclusions come, but again, depending on the need, the appropriate conclusions, the appropriate comparisons need to be made. Look at the orange, it is much smaller in these two. So orange is the east. In the east, espresso and herbal tea are much smaller market, smaller profits. So I could really make out, right? But of course, if I have to look at the blue, it looks as if it's more or less uniform across all the four markets. So slightly difficult if I have to assess where something is stronger versus the weaker. But if I have to look at part to whole, which is contributing how much for which particular product, then probably a stacked bar is really helping me out. Now, a few more things I can quickly play around with it. From this, whatever we have put market, from the color, let's say I am dragging it onto the size. Now you see a different graph coming out, right? The size. One of them is showing, west is showing a much wider size, then south is showing much slightly narrower, east even more narrower. Instead of color, it is showing more for each product. There is a differentiation that is coming by the size of the bar, width of the bar. Similarly, if I drag it onto the label, now I'm getting the same color but west south being represented as a part of the bar. So I can get a representation in this format as well. Now if I am dragging the same market into detail, there is nothing much that is coming out, only the breakup. So a few things, the same graph in different presentations can come out just by dragging that same observation across. So the bar is remains still stacked, but based on the visual encoding that I have selected, the way it is presented is different. Now if I am taking away the bar altogether, market from this area, then it's either I can drag it here or drag it here. It means that it is no longer applicable. Then I am getting the very first chart that I have created, which is purely product type wise. So this is typically the kind of variation that we can bring to the bar chart, and lots of course this is a very preliminary chart. I just wanted to give you a kind of a flavor how quick it is to work with Tableau to create this kind of simple visualizations of the data, and bring out lots of insights from a couple of fields of any table. All right. So thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.